Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode on the 406 Garage, we are on the Binder Finder. We are headed to rescue another truck. That's right. Binder Finder, we're finding them, we're getting them, we're rescuing them, we're bringing them back to the shop, we're getting them back on the road so they can be used again. On today's episode, we are headed north to meet with a gentleman that's had this truck for the past 15 years, I believe. And he's just restructuring his life as he's kind of getting later in life. And he's got a really nice travel all. We are not buying the travel all. That is what he is keeping, and he's going to enjoy that, take it to shows, cars and coffee. But the truck that he has, we are going to rescue that and bring it back to the shop and get it back on the road. So stay tuned. I think you guys are going to like this one. It's a really neat truck and it's a neat story. So we'll see you guys here when we pick it up. Not sure if you guys can see that. It's Mount Hood. Pretty nice day. A little bit of clouds on the mountain, but it's early, so hopefully they'll burn off. Co-pilot is co-piloting from the back. Worthless right now. Just waiting for the next activity. Well, there's still white stuff up here. Road's clear, wet, temperature's 34, 35, so it's not bad. But yeah. It'll be May 1st this weekend, and you never know it because Mother Nature doesn't want to let winter go yet, apparently. Nothing to worry about as far as drivability. I mean, the roads are fine. And the great thing about this is we need this moisture for the farmers and ranchers for irrigation water, as well as to help keep the forests wet longer to prevent the forest fires. So anyway, it's pretty. This is Hans. Hans sold me the truck. This is a 1970 D1200, and he drove down halfway, met us halfway today, which is great. Really appreciate that. He wanted to get out of the house, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's owned this truck about a decade, but he does know most of the history of this truck. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you know?
Yeah, well, what I know is Harold bought the truck brand new. Harold Dragiseth bought the truck brand new at Auburn Brewer Chrysler Plymouth, which is Auburn, Washington.
Okay.
And they were also an international dealer on the side.
Okay.
And I'm guessing he probably special ordered it just because it, has the 5-speed overdrive.
Not a common transmission.
It had some things that, it was set up for hauling a camper and everything. And so I don't know how long he owned it, but he was the original owner for many years, and we know now that there was a subsequent owner who discovered us on Facebook and chimed in that they were the owner at a certain point, and then they handed the truck off to a young man who had no transportation, and it was supposed to be a college vehicle or something.
Heck of a college vehicle.
Right, and I bought it from him. It was sort of a distress sale. He needed cash.
Yeah.
I drove down. In fact, I didn't even know it had the 5-speed in it when I test drove it.
I knew it was manual.
I knew it was manual. I got in and I shifted it like a 4-speed, and I went from 3rd to 5th. And I thought, that's weird.
That has a lot more gear than I.
Then when I came back down to what should have been 4th gear, then she really wound out, because then I jumped into 4th gear. So then I realized, oh my gosh, I'd always wanted a T34 5-speed overdrive.
They are neat. I think it's one of those things where you love it or you hate it.
Right.
Because it's weird enough that I love them. I think it's neat. But if you don't know what you're doing, like you said, you don't know where you're going. You're not sure where you're...
Yeah, and the shift knob, the things were kind of worn out. They're there. You can see it, but not real easily.
Yeah.
And So anyway, I bought the truck, and I was trying to replace one that I'd given up earlier, the 1310.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a workhorse on the farm.
Yeah.
Something where we go down to the river and get firewood. And the kids were just at the driving age, 16 and 15 or so.
Yep.
And they got to drive this truck to school. It never went on any big long trips for us. It was strictly farm in town for us.
It was a tool.
So
it's like a tractor.
Yeah, so we used the heck out of it and put very little into it. But sadly, you know, things start to snowball on you if it's not a daily driver.
Sure.
And I have other interests now that I'm retired. I have other toys, and I'm still keeping my Travelall that will never go anywhere.
Now that Travelall you were telling me was bought at the same dealership as this truck.
Yeah.
Which you didn't know until you started going.
Right, until I started going to the video.
And that's a 73?
73 Travelall
Okay.
that Mom and Dad bought brand new when I was 11.
Wow.
And I still have it, and it's been garaged 100% of its life. It's in a little better shape than this one, but
Yeah, I bet.
international blood runs deep in me. My parents were immigrants, and they came to the States in about 57. And I have a few siblings, and the first new vehicle they bought was a Corvair Greenbrier van. And it had the opposed seating in the back. There was a table in the middle and two bench seats that faced each other. And all us kids just kind of rattled around in the back of this. Dad had this thing about pulling trailers. He had already built a homemade trailer, and he tried to pull it with his Corvair, air-cooled, and that didn't work so well.
Right.
And then they bought an Aloha trailer out of Oregon, and it was too much for the Greenbrier. So, being an engineer, he did his research. He bought a brand spanking new 64 Travelall. That vehicle I grew up in from 64 to 73. And I love the white 64 Travelall.
The C-Series, brown body.
And my mom, because my folks were immigrants from a very, very small country that you could drive across in a matter of 2 hours, my folks had wanderlust. They loved to explore. And my mom now, who's still alive at 87, she says, your dad had no business taking all of us so far into the boondocks. But I think he felt confident because he had that travel. And he knew it was going to get there and back. Yeah. And
Safety net.
right. And then he had a plan. He never borrowed money for vehicles or anything. But he had his own little bank account that he put a truck payment in every month. And every 10 years religiously he bought a new vehicle.
Okay.
So in 73 he bought the new Travelall. And then in 84, he was one of the very first people to buy a diesel Suburban with a Banks turbo on it.
Yep, I've heard that story.
And then later after that one, 10 years or a little more than 10 years later, then came the 96 Dodge Cummins that was his very last truck. So he always had really, really good tow rigs.
Yeah, it sounded like they're all robust trucks.
Yeah. And then him and Mom later, the 73 Travelall towed an Airstream.
Okay.
So that was their,
And now, so what do you use the Travelall for now?
not much.
Go to
It's
Cars
just-
and Coffee, go take the kids to ice cream or the
We
grandkids?
we have a drive-in in town. It's fun to go to the drive-in. I just drive it around. I feel my dad when I drive that.
Feel the soul.
It's so funny. My dad he would sit and he'd hold his hand like up to his lip while he was driving. And every now and then, do the same thing.
Catch yourself doing
And
it.
I'm like, oh gosh, I'm my dad. You
Yeah.
know? And getting a little off the international thing, my mother's still alive, and I do a lot with her because she lives very close to me in a retirement center. still feel my dad all the time, because now I'm taking care of my mom the way my dad did.
Sure.
And I take my mom for a drive in the travel, and she gets misty. She's a little sad because it brings back a lot of good memories.
That's a good heart. That's a good heart memory.
Yeah,
right
yeah, fantastic memories. And she remembers all the adventures with the internationals that we went on with. So.
Yeah, well, that's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, but now I'm moving on. I'm going to keep the travel all, but like I said, this one needs some things that the 406 can do. I don't have the discretionary income for big dollar projects.
Sure.
I made a choice to retire a little bit early, and I'm doing everything I can. I'm not drawing Social Security or anything. I'm just trying to live for 5 years until Social Security kicks in, and
keep it simple.
Yeah, and just a pension. So some of these toys, they need to go, and I felt all along that the next generation should have them. I do not believe in hoarding them and letting them sit in a field until you're dead.
Right, because that doesn't do anybody any good.
To me, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people need to realize that if you don't have the discretionary income in your working years to fix the truck, you're never going to do it when you're retired either.
Right.
There's always going to be another bill that comes ahead of that.
Sure.
And just let it go to somebody who appreciates it. That's my thing. I want an international fan to drive this and own it and enjoy it for what it is.
Well, I think I told you that's one of my favorite things about this truck and many of the trucks we end up with. The story. There's so much story and history behind this. And I'm honored to buy it. I told you that on the phone when I talked to you. And I know you had a million other people that could have bought it, and it wasn't about the money. It was, you and I talked, and you kind of said that our place was the right place for it to go, basically.
Right. And the thing was on that is, I read the comments. I had somebody offer me $600 more than asking price. But it is going to require a ton of work. And it looks better in the pictures than it is in real life.
Right.
And I'm being totally honest that your shop is going to have to do a ton of work to fix it up where it's really trustworthy again.
And that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. So I feel good about that. So,
well, I appreciate
thanks,
it.
man.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, we are about halfway home. You'll get to see the interview there with Hans, who told us the whole story of this great truck. So there it is on the trailer. 1970 D1200, 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive camper special. Does have the wrong grill. We do have the correct grill for it, don't worry. It's gonna need quite a bit of work to get it back on the road, but Hans was confident we could do it and really wanted us to have it, so pretty stoked. It's a great rig. The story's amazing. The documentation and the history that he had with this truck is pretty incredible. So I'll do a little recap when we get back home, give you guys a little bit more information, and yeah, we'll see you here in just a few minutes, hopefully. No snow on the road, so we should be good. Alright guys, that's a wrap. We are back to the shop. Finished the binder finder rescue for today, and yeah, really happy with this truck. Great story, great documentation. Super excited that we were able to rescue it and that he chose us to come get it. So thank you guys very much for liking and following and subscribing and everything else. You guys make it possible for us to go get these trucks and rescue them, and I really appreciate that. Stay tuned for more info on this truck. We will get it in the shop and start figuring out what it needs and what it desires and what we need to do to make it roadworthy again. So as always, I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Make sure you guys like, tag, share, and follow, and help us continue to tell the stories of these trucks.